especially like the thing I was just saying on like helping the most number of people, I think like the legacy and purpose like I want to have is just like impacting as many people as I can, so that means, this podcast right here, or one of my friends helping them with one thing to a larger thing, building an amazing company that impacts millions of people, so there's a wide range of that, but I just want to have like a positive effect on people, know, and I think at Madhappy, we just want to make the world a more optimistic place. And I think like that came from like what we want as people as well, is we want to have an impact on people, know, and I think I've always like loved people. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people and trying to help them, and I know that it's not about like getting anything in return, and that's not like why I do it. What I get in return is like the good feeling of helping someone.
Purpose in the Youth. Purpose in the Youth podcast. Welcome back to the Purpose in the Youth podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Purpose in the Youth podcast with your favorite bearded man, the one, the only, Bobby. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Purpose in the Youth podcast with your favorite bearded man, the one, the only, Bobby. Today in the building, co-founder of Madhappy, Peiman Raf.
What's up, Bobby?
What it be, brother?
It's good to be here.
Dude, pleasure to have you here, man. I forgot to ask you, is this your first podcast or have you been on some podcasts before?
I've been on some, but I would say like this is the one I've been most excited about.
Oh, he hasn't been on the Purpose in the Youth yet. But you've heard of some past guests, which got me excited. That means you've are at least familiar with what this conversation is going to look like in the next hour and a half right now.
For sure.
Which is dope.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you here today, man. I love everything that's happening with Madhappy. I love just like this branding and this message, and it just is so much. It feels like so much good into the world. Like I feel like when you're working on a project like that, everything you're surrounded by, the people you're around right now, I mean, it's got to be a great time to be running a business in freaking Los Angeles, California.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing we could complain about. You know, as you know, it's like we're just living the dream.
Living the dream.
For sure.
What are some of the day-to-day routines that you have that kind of keep you mentally stable? I feel like that's a good first question to ask you.
That's a great first question. Yeah. I think like that's like really big for me. I think early on, I wasn't as careful with like what I was doing in the mornings, and I was waking up, checking email, and like quickly realized that wasn't like a sustainable thing I could keep doing, especially like as we continue to grow, and it continues to like pile up, what was 10 emails in the morning is 40, And so I think like for me, like I really try to wake up in the morning, usually around 6:37, and have like a couple hours, to myself. Really typically don't start working till like 9 a.m. So, I have that 2.5 hours of, whatever I end up doing that day. Over the past few months, our boy, Jesse Israel, he runs this thing. You should have him on the pod actually, called The Big Quiet.
I think I came across this in the last couple of days.
Yeah. Jesse's great, but he a couple years back taught us a form of meditation, mantra meditation that, it's 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, and have been trying to do that every morning. I haven't been getting my afternoon ones in, but, most days when I get that 20 minutes in, before I do anything else, and then, I'll get up, I usually go to the gym in the morning.
Yeah.
Do it with my brother mainly.
Perfect.
And yeah, it's great.
You guys get yourself. You guys pull each other out when Noah doesn't want to go. You're pulling him. Vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. And just try to break a sweat in the morning. You know, sometimes that ends up just being like a 30-minute walk. Sometimes that ends up being like a hard workout in the gym.
Yeah.
Always try to steam or sauna after. Big fan of the sauna.
Let's go.
Yeah, love the sauna.
Let's go.
I think that's like been huge over the past like 4 to 6 months that I've been doing that consistently. You know? Just like you feel great after, and you never regret doing it.
Yeah.
So I think like that's amazing, and really been trying to do that a lot, paired with the cold showers, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You're on dude. I'm loving this because you're on like I call this the Bobby formula. Yeah. Man, I'm all about like you win the morning, you win the day. Like I think it's so important, especially with the social media world we live in now. Yeah. Cut out all that crap.
For sure.
Wake up. Start your day by just focusing on yourself, the mental health, the physical health. Don't worry about them emails. I used to wake up and start working on podcasts within the first 20 minutes of being awoke. Yeah. And by 9, 10 a.m., I'd be like dead. I would just feel like I haven't gotten anything done. And then I reversed it, and I'm like, no, every single morning is my morning. Like, I post something on Instagram to just show the day-to-day journey of my life, but other than that, I'm not checking social until I've been up at least 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Like, I would have had worked out by then, drink coffee, but it can be tempting. But when you can get yourself to discipline yourself like that, your headspace is so much more clear.
For sure. And I think I'm still working on that, like you always hear like people talk about the routines. I just want to say like I'm not able to do that every day, Like I think that's like an important part of it, because like it seems like so aspirational when people hear about it, but like definitely like still working on like being all the way there. And I think like listening to like people like you preaching that every day, it seems like this is definitely like what I want to be doing.
Don't get me wrong, I probably spent a solid year and a half remolding the morning routine, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. And even then, I think I added like reading for 30 minutes probably 3 months ago. So you're always kind of constantly working in and working out the things that work and the things that don't. But I think it's supposed to take that process, because truthfully too, what works for me might not work for you.
For sure.
And what works for you might not work for me. And that's the tough thing, is when you listen to podcasts and you listen to all these conversations and great content, it's inspiring. You can't think that just because you're not doing the Gary V lifestyle that you aren't going to be successful, because he's crazy. You know what I mean? Like he's up at 6, he goes to bed at 1. Yeah. I've done that whole routine of just hustle, but then I realized it's actually worth that extra hour and a half to stop and go to sleep and get that extra hour of sleep.
100%.
For the next 18 hours, I'm going to feel so much more clear headspace that I can operate differently. But I think the whole thing is with the morning routine and like anything else, you got to find what works best for you.
Definitely.
And it takes time.
Yeah, and then really after that, either we'll eat breakfast, sometimes won't, and then we'll just get started. We have an office in downtown here, so we're usually there, like I said, around 9 and getting the day going.
And that's when when the real magic starts to happen. Oh, we're gonna get to Madhappy in a little bit. I know that's the big gem of today's topic of conversation, but I really am a big believer of kind of painting that picture to how you got to where you are today, because people see maybe the pop-up shops, they see the clothes, they see all the cool things that are happening, but I think there's a lot of things that have stemmed to get you to this point in your life. And so we're going to backtrack a little bit. You were originally born in Florence, Italy.
I was.
Born in Florence, Italy. You moved to LA at 6. Do you remember anything of Florence at all?
Yeah, for sure. I see you did your research.
Oh, yeah. You better strap on your seatbelt. I got some gems in the bowl.
Love it. So born in Florence, Italy. So my parents are originally from Iran.
Wow.
So they, during the revolution there in the late 70s, moved to Italy for college, met there, and got married. And started
get married in Italy. Dude?
Started living there, and so that's where me and my brother Noah were born. I think very early on, obviously moved to LA. I think that was like a product of my parents having like the foresight to see like where all the opportunity was. So like obviously very grateful for them for like seeing that, and loved like I don't remember too much from like early childhood days, but I would say like it's a good place to be born. We go back a lot, and you go back to
really. So you still have like some family and friends there.
Especially my parents have like a lot of like family, friends, and it's a great place, especially like for vacation and being able to chill. And it's it's cool to just like have like kind of a unique past where it's like Iran, Italy, and then moved here when I was 6. My brother was 4, and then basically grew up here the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's it like being raised by? What is your actual background? What's your nationality?
Yeah, so Iranian or Persian.
Persian, okay.
And
how is there anything specific about being raised in like a Persian family? Like, is there certain traits or certain things that are musts?
For sure, yeah. I would say like it's like very like family oriented. Like a lot of family events, a lot of family gathering, like very like tight-knit family as a whole. But it was kind of cool to have like that and like some of like the Italian aspects as well. So like the Persian food, the Italian food mixed together was like just like a cool background. And my mom is a great cook herself, so she was always like cooking up the fire,
she had that fire cooking up.
No, exactly. And so I think it was like I really like that. I always thought that was like pretty unique, because like I kind of had like a different experience than just other friends I had. And I think that was like kind of like the difference for me. Like loved it.
It worked.
Yeah.
What part of LA did you spend most of your life growing up in?
So I grew up in Beverly Hills, actually.
Beverly Hills. The Weezer song, you know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Is it crazy growing up there? I mean, the tough thing is it's what you know, right? Like you're raised in that, so you know nothing differently. But do you think there were any certain things you were exposed to just being around Beverly Hills, California? Because 99.99% of the people that listen to this podcast right now are thinking just like Rodeo Drive, the nice cars, the glitz and the glamour.
Sure.
Is it everything it's made out to seem?
Yeah, so I would say, definitely like early on, like you said, I was 6. I obviously didn't know better. But, as I continued to grow up, my family wasn't like super wealthy or anything of that nature. But of course, like when you live in Beverly Hills, you're exposed to all the things you just said, but also like great success. You see people who have done amazing things, and in a way is obviously like super motivating, and I think being in that environment, of course, like for some people it can make them very like pessimistic about it or like hate it. But, for me, and I would say for my brother too, like it was like cool to see, and we were lucky to like grow up in a city where, that is like, like shown to you, and that's, you're exposed to that.
You can model it.
Yeah.
You see it. You see it in front of your eyes. Yeah. You can replicate that if you want it.
And then of course you see some things that you don't like either, and that just shows you that you don't want to do certain other things, and I think that's just as important.
Yeah.
It's just like a product of like what you make of it, you know, like the excess stuff. No, you probably don't need that, but like there is stuff to model, especially around like certain people that I look up to today.
Yeah. I think it can go one of two ways. It can either hurt you, or it can just be a great example for you to say, this is the lifestyle I want to live, and I'm going to get inspired by these people, and I'm also not going to surround myself by those other types of people. Yeah. What did your parents do growing up?
Yeah, so my parents actually worked together. So my dad was like an architect, my mom was an interior designer, and from their time in Italy, they had a lot of relationships there with vendors. So they're doing a lot of interiors of homes, kitchens, baths, a bunch of things like that. Just always owned their own business. Yeah. And I think like that was obviously like inspiring for me and my brother as well. Just to see like how hard they worked, and really like obviously like they made a huge sacrifice moving here in the first place. And my dad had lived in Italy for over 25 years, and he moved to LA not speaking any English, not having really any family there. Most of my mom's family's here, but it was a big sacrifice for both of them, and I think that obviously I didn't realize that like when I was so young, but as I grow up now, obviously like very grateful for that.
Yeah, so you probably, it sounded like sacrificing and work ethic is probably some of the bigger lessons you got from them.
For sure, no, yeah, and then always just like being super supportive. I would say like it took me a lot longer to realize like some parents aren't like that, and some parents aren't always like going to all your games, or just always like proud of you no matter what you're doing. And I think that's also like a big part of like how I was raised, and what we're really grateful for is that like having great parents. You don't decide that, obviously. You don't decide where you're born, you don't decide your parents. So those things, like we got lucky. We're already in like the top 1% from that alone. And then like you said, growing up here, like you realize a lot of people aren't as lucky. And they might have like more money or something, but a lot of those other things are way worse, and I would never trade for this.
It opens when you can flip the perspective of realizing like, oh, there is somebody else out there that wasn't raised by two parents that are still together and loving and supporting, going to the soccer games or going to any sporting events. Like that's when you're like, holy shit. Like, and unfortunately, I don't think most of the time we realize until we get older and we get wiser and we've lived on our own and gone to college, that's when it finally is like the red flag of like, wait a second, I've been taking this shit for granted all of my life. Like, why haven't I been doing this? But when it's all it's all you know. And I think at some point then there's like a trigger that happens that you just start to appreciate the things that you used to take for granted, and you start to be more grateful for a lot of things that most people don't have in their actual lives.
For sure. Yeah. And I think even like going to school, going to college, you realize, oh wow, like, I had it so great at home. Yeah. And, and then like just like looking back, definitely like what you said is like reflecting on it, like I read something like after high school, you've already spent like 90% of the time you spend with your parents, which
that's
is pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. Right. So like anytime I think of that, I'm like, shit, that's crazy. Cause like up until I'm 18, like the rest of my life, like it's kind of sad, obviously, but it also just like makes you realize like you want to spend more time with them, and you want to, be like as like thankful and grateful as you can for like everything they did for you,
Yeah.
you know, in the amount of time that they have left.
That's crazy you're saying that number, the 90%, because this is the week that growing up, we would go away to Wells Beach, Maine every year in August. And this is the week I would be with them. So like they left today, they're up there on vacation. I'm sure they're having a blast, but it's tough sometimes because you realize the sacrifice you make when you willfully move 2,800 miles away from your family. But luckily I have supportive parents and they know I'm out here I'm not here just running through the Hollywood Hills partying and doing dumb stuff. I'm actually trying to build something, but yeah, it's part of the game. What was that relationship like, you and your brother though, growing up? I'm super curious because it seems, I mean, you guys are business partners now. I've seen past interviews and you guys are, you know, obviously part of a business venture together. You have to be cooperative, but are you guys always cool growing up? Is there a little like bumping shoulders? Because you're older, right? 2 years older than him, so you might be like, right, boom, boom.
That's a great question. You know, I think like any siblings, obviously we had our battles, especially like between two brothers. Obviously, I think what was cool is that we were only 2 years apart. Yeah. You know, and a lot of times, and I've only recently started thinking about this, but when you're more like 4 or 5 years apart, it's like harder to like have that like
big gap
connection. You know, it's more like older brother, younger brother, like exemplified way harder. So I think for us, like we were lucky that we were always close in age. So, you know, we could do a lot of things together. You know, he could come to things that I was going to, I could go to things he was going to. And I think like that like formed like a bond between us. And then just growing up, you know, had a lot of shared interests. We're really into sports, especially basketball. So doing that together, obviously, like continued like adding to that bond, I guess, over time. And then in a lot of ways we were different, you know, and I think realized that as we continued to grow up, you know, in high school, I would say like I was way more like cared about school and he just didn't, you know, and I think that difference obviously like at first was like hard for me because I thought,
you're just like, why aren't you paying? Why don't you enjoy school? Come on, dude. Start studying.
Yeah, and I think at first especially it was like hard for my parents, you know. I think just like realizing that like, you know, everyone's different. You know? And I think,
was he following more of like the creative stuff? Was he early on kind of just?
Yeah, he was following the creative stuff, but he was just, you know, school just like never really like appealed to him, you know, and I think he just wanted to do his own thing. And not that he knew when he was young exactly what he wanted to do or knew he wanted to be, you know, in fashion or creative, but I think he just knew that like school wasn't it for him, you know, and I think that's like, especially as like an older brother, like, you know, it took me a while to realize, and I think he obviously just like anyone, like I did as well, just like you make a lot of mistakes when you're young and you just try to learn from them. So I think like that took a while for me to like, you know, be like
loosen the slack a little bit.
But I think like always just like we always had a great relationship and then, you know, just always like supportive of each other. You know, he would visit me at school and whatnot, and then, you know, I would try to like help him out with whatever he was up to, and then, you know, we always kind of knew we did want to do something together, you know, in business, whatever that ended up being. We didn't ever have like an exact thing. But I think it was cool because, you know, he had way more of like the creative side, and you know, I tried to have more of like the business side. And while we had, you know, at the end of the day, we had like very similar like values, you know, being raised from the same parents family and stuff. So I think that with the age thing allowed us to like always just like be super close and like on the same page. But that didn't mean we didn't disagree. That doesn't mean we don't disagree today ever. But just I think using those things like helps, you know, move everything along.
Yeah. Do you feel like your guys' relationship got stronger when you went to University of Michigan?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say that, you know, we always like shared a room growing up, you know, so we were like very close. And that was like our first time like not basically being together, you know, and I think it was...
You move out, he's got the room to himself. He's like, peace!
Yeah, exactly.
Don't come back, man.
Himself. And then, you know, it's like a kind of like a pivotal time. Like, you know, he was a junior in high school just when I left, you know, and I think he learned and I learned obviously to like grow up and just like obviously be in different places at once. And I mean, when he would come visit me, it was great. You know,
you love that.
Yeah,
junior, senior year in high school, and he's going to visit his big bro at college.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really fun. You know, I think loved like sharing those experiences with him, and you know, and he did a lot of growing up on his own, which I think was cool. You know, because when you're growing up, you know, I always thought it was like way worse to be like the older sibling, you know, like just like a lot of the pressure.
You got to go through the hoops. He gets the easy card out.
Exactly. And, you know, in a lot of ways, like that does happen, you know, but I think, you know, it's also hard as like a younger brother to be able to do your own thing until like, you know, that brother is like at college or something, and you can, you know, you can kind of like set things at how you want, you know, and I think you're not always looking up to like, oh, like, you know, what would this person think, you know, and just being able to do your own things like super important. And I think like definitely that bond would like grew stronger as like I was in college and stuff.
I have a younger sister 2 years younger than me, so I was you're like preaching to the choir. I'm loving it because I'm like, yep, I know exactly what he's talking about, but I had to go through so much bullshit growing up, and then when it would come time and my sister would be like, can I go do that thing? And no questions asked. Like they went, you know, especially when I was just starting to drive with teenage drivers, big deal in the Hober household. But then when it was time for my sister to drive with her friends, they didn't even think twice about it because they had gone through the whole process with me. So I always feel like sometimes the younger siblings get the better part of it. But what was the inspiration to go to University of Michigan? You ended up majoring in business, but you know, you're packing up from LA, you're going out to the Midwest. Whole different world. Why University of Michigan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually always wanted to go to Stanford growing up.
Okay.
You know, I think
so you wanted to stay in California, huh?
Yeah. I don't think it was that. You know, I think I just like loved that school, you know, very early on.
I mean, it's prestigious. Yeah, it's definitely a great school.
Of course, it's an amazing school, but I don't think that was the main reason. You know, I think growing up I loved tech, entrepreneurship. I was very into that stuff and always, you know, hoped to do something, you know, of my own, start my own business. And I felt like, you know, I would hear about all these people that went to Stanford and then, you know, started these huge companies. So like, you know, I think I took some inspiration from that. Also visited and loved it and whatnot. But I guess I saw
it's like its
that
own city, right? It's like 50,000 students.
Yeah, it's like amazing. You know, it's an amazing school. So I applied early there.
Early action, early decision?
Yeah, they have like an early action type thing.
Okay.
That, you know, if you get in, you don't have to go, but you can't do it to other schools as well. And,
gotcha.
And I didn't get in, you know, and I think, you know, obviously makes sense. Like I was probably like, it was a reach for me to get in anyway.
Yeah.
Although I tried super hard in high school and whatnot. And, you know, applied to a bunch of other schools. What I was kind of looking for was some type of like business degree that I felt like was really reputable at these schools. So, you know, was fortunate enough to get into some cool schools like Berkeley, Georgetown, Michigan, you know, a bunch here, UCLA, USC and whatnot. And for me, you know, at the end of the day, it was about like Michigan or Georgetown. And like I said, I loved sports growing up, and you know, I knew a few people that had gone to Michigan, and some of my friends, like their families were from there, and like heard amazing things.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you visit, you know, you really like see what it's about.
I can only imagine.
And you know, if you ever meet someone that goes to Michigan, like they really care about where they went to school. They really want to help the people that went there as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't really see that at that many other schools. And even today, like I would say like probably like one of the best decisions like I made in my life was going there because of all that like stuff that happens after you go there, you know? And I think like I would have never been exposed to, you know, I grew up in LA. So if I never would have left, like I just, like I wouldn't have been exposed to so many things I was exposed to. I wouldn't have had these like new experiences if I was like super close to home.
Yeah.
And then also just like the network, and then like the business school being really great, all those things just like added to it.
Yeah. So what are some of the bigger realizations you're having while you're out there? Now that you're out of LA, like that's the city you grew up in, you're out in the Midwest. Do you remember certain kind of realizations about life or people or anything that kind of jumps to your mind?
Yeah. So, you know, I think the first thing was it's like kind of like a new start, you know, and I think you get so comfortable, like especially in high school, because you know everyone, you know everyone knows you, and you know you're not really like working hard to like meet new people, you know, especially in high school, like you're just seeing the same people every day, and you know going to school that's about like 40,000 people, you know, all the way like across the country, like in the Midwest, you know, which is like obviously very different than LA. You know, you just have to learn to like adapt and obviously meet new people and be, you know, proactive about what you want to do, you know. So I think that was like the first thing. And then to, you know, joined a fraternity there, you know, then I think like that was a great experience for me because, you know, it's just like such like a bonding moment, you know, and I think you meet all these people that you've never known before, but through, you know, that first semester really get to know them well.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think that's like ever happened or that will ever happen again, where like you meet so many people in such a short period of time but like feel so close with them.
And everybody's open at the time because they're all looking to meet new friends too.
Yeah.
So they're like, tell me about yourself. It's
Exactly.
very comforting.
Exactly.
Everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and especially like within like fraternities, like, you know, people say a lot of bad things about fraternities or whatever, and think it's like taboo
just some
or
party
whatever.
program and blah blah blah.
But I do think that like it really like lets you just like meet new people and like form bonds that like you haven't had before.
Yeah.
And then just really got to meet people that were from like different states and different countries, and you know that wasn't happening as much in LA.
Yeah.
And then the school part, you know, it was like very different than high school, but I got to take amazing classes in business and start really like learning about what I was interested in, you know, and that was really cool.
Yeah. So while you're in school taking these classes, are you for sure set on kind of finance? Like what's pulling you to there? Because obviously you end up eventually interning for Jefferies, which is a diversified financial service company. Are you like while you're in school, are you kind of leaning towards finance or?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, like I always loved tech. So I always had this idea of like wanting to like be in venture capital.
Yeah.
You know, it was like very like appealing to me. You know, I had read a lot of like books on the topic. So that I would say like was like where I would try to intern at a lot of places that kind of had that vibe, whether it was in LA or wherever. But I think, you know, the way our business school is set up is like, you know, they're really like leading you to a track of either like consulting or investment banking. And, you know, I kind of like saw that, you know, like I was doing well in my classes. So it kind of like, I kind of felt like the FOMO of like, oh, like
everyone else is doing it. I probably should do this.
Yeah. And that means I should be like trying to get these interviews too, you know? And I think I started doing that and I liked it. You know, I think I interned, like you said, at Jefferies my junior year, and then actually started working there full time after I graduated. But, you know, I think I kind of like fell into that like trap of like not really like waiting for the right opportunity, but just like jumping into it. And then, you know, once someone like offers you a job and, you know, it's like pretty
take
cool.
That.
Like, yeah,
everybody else is talking about jobs. Exactly. I need to grab whatever is offered.
Exactly. You know, and it's obviously like very, you know, you feel really good about it and you want to take it. But, you know, I think I wasn't like at the place where I could just like take a step back and just really think about it. You know, I kind of like felt like some type of pressure to want to like react all of a sudden.
So it was that was the kind of the big question I was going to ask you, because you intern as literally as an investment banking summer analyst, and then you graduate, you get that as a full-time career. So is there anything in that internship that is happening that you're like, oh yeah, this is something I need to do, like this is dope, I love this? Because obviously they gave you the offer. Is this going into your senior year? You now have the offer, and you go into your senior year knowing I have a job lined up and I can just go with the flow.
So like that's what's crazy, you know, is like typically how these programs work is like after you finish interning, you know, they pick like whatever the kids that are going to get the offers, and they give them to you at the end of the internship.
They scoop you up right before you even graduate,
and then you have a week basically to tell them if you're going to do it, right? You know, and so kind of fell into that. I definitely liked my time there, especially as an intern. You know, I think again, it was like a group of like 40 or so interns, and you feel that like similar bond of like getting
the freshman
to know
year of school
people.
Type of thing, right?
Yeah, but like I think like, you know, especially like in hindsight now, but I think at the time as well, like I would think like I know this isn't like what I actually want to do. But a lot of like how banking works is like you work there for 2 years, then you go and do something else.
Yeah.
So like I always like knew like that
this is short term.
It's a short term thing. But looking back, you know, it's like even those 2 years like are just like pivotal years.
Yeah.
So you don't really, and it wasn't about like, oh, it's so much hard work. That wasn't the reason like I was like didn't want to do it, but it was more like, is this like really what I want to be doing with my life?
So are you excited about you graduate from Michigan, now you're moving to New York City to work as a full-time analyst, investment banking, New York City, like I mean, you're 22, like it sounds like the perfect dream life. How's that? Because you end up spending a full year there. How is that whole year?
So actually, you know, when I was very pumped, you know, graduated, went with my family to Italy on a great trip.
Amazing.
Right before I started, moved to New York July of 2016. You know, start training immediately, and then around August start the full-time role.
Wow.
You know, and I'm feeling good about it. You know, I'm living with 2 of my friends from college. Was happy about that. Most of my friends from college actually moved to New York, so it was cool.
That's
you know,
good.
the same thing, and was really liking it. And actually, like about a month after that, started feeling a little sick. So I know it says a year, but so at about like September, like I started feeling like, like mono type symptoms.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know.
I know mono's like, I always referred to as the kissing disease,
Correct,
but like
yeah.
do you
So
just feel like depleted,
very,
like weak?
yeah,
and...
like very like fatigued and like tired, and just really wasn't sure, like just like not like myself. And I'd never like felt anything like that before. And, it was going on for like a couple weeks, and, I was like, I got to get this like checked out, and it wasn't that like work was like super demanding or anything, that's what scared me, because it wasn't like I was like, oh, I hadn't slept in 3 weeks, no wonder, like it was just like came out of nowhere. And, so I'm like, all right, like I'm going to go home, like see a couple of doctors and come back. So end of September, go home, only about like two or 3 months into my new job.
Wow.
And, I see a couple of doctors, they can't like really figure it out. They're like, oh, like it's in your head or whatever. So, I'm just like, I'm like telling my parents, like, I really just like don't think, I'm fully right, and like I've never felt like this before. So I decided to actually like take a leave from my job. So I'm back in LA, like October, for the next couple months, just like, waiting and, like trying to do everything right, sleeping a lot, eating right, all those sorts of things, get like seeing if I could figure out, is it a virus, like the rabbit holes I went down trying to figure it out was really hard. And, I think just realized like, this is one of those things like I'm not going to figure out. I think just like time will pass. And obviously like, that was like my first time in my life that, things didn't like go my way type thing, like as like the type of person that I was always like super like driven, like trying to do the best at everything I do, like very competitive. Like I would say like that's like one of my like defining characteristics. Yeah. And I think that was the first time like I failed, and like in like a serious way.
I wouldn't say fail, you more of let yourself, you could say like let yourself
myself down.
Yeah.
In a sense felt like failure to me,
gotcha.
And I think from there I was like, I was really down, I was like, it was like my friends were asking me, but I didn't know what to say because I didn't really know what was wrong, and then I felt bad about that. And then, it kind of like spiraled from there. And like, that was like my first time like feeling like down at all, in my life, and I think that like really gave me a lot of sympathy and empathy for people that, I had heard of in the past that like had feelings like that, some of my closest friends, including Mason, who's one of my business partners now, like, and I think, from there, like, of course, like around December, start feeling better, and really just trying to figure out, I make a decision that I'm not going to go back to New York,
wow.
Which was a pretty big decision for me at the time. I had signed a 1-year lease, I had this job, and, I just had to let them know that like, it just didn't feel right to go back. I would say that I was just like pretty scared that like if I went back and I started feeling the same,
it would
again,
just go right back down.
Just didn't make sense, and I think that was like a moment where like I just like understood like for myself that like if I was gonna like fully get better, and like I had to like move on from that chapter of my life. And I think I would say like at the time that was like really hard for me to decide, and I think I was really worried about, oh, am I going to be able to get another job, and what am I going to do next, and spent a bunch of time just thinking about that, and I think I was very lucky to have my parents who were like super supportive. I think like some parents definitely wouldn't be in that situation, and they would think like, oh, like why are you just like giving up on this right away, especially because like the doctors couldn't find like anything that was like wrong or whatever, so they're like people like obviously are like doubting, oh, like is he actually sick and whatnot, and I think I was lucky to have like really like supportive like parents, my brother obviously, and some of my closest friends. And from there just like really started to think about it. And kind of at the same time as like my brother, and I can give a quick background on him.
I guess you could give a little bit of a background, because I know he's had some previous experience starting a brand. He's done some designing for other people. No big deal. I think he's worked with Justin Bieber, I believe. I could be completely wrong, but if that's a If he has, I would flex all day. I'd probably have that on my Instagram bio. But give us a little like 60-second context of who your brother is.
For sure.
Because he's obviously going to play a main conversation piece as we move forward.
So, like I said, my brother, didn't love school. After he graduated, was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. In his senior year, I actually started a clothing line with my now partner Mason, who had been my friend at the time for about 5 or 6 years. And him and Mason just loved fashion and wanted to like get experience like creating something, so they would go to downtown LA, buy fabric, find people to create the clothing they were trying to create, and really created a line out of that. And that was pretty cool because it was like really like hands-on experience for them. And they were selling to a few stores, and it was like a cool experience.
What was the name of it too?
It was called Us by
By
Mason and
Mason.
Noah.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And I think like from that experience, like knew that they like loved that like creating type of field, obviously, and loved fashion, so it made sense for them. Around the same time, my brother, he met this guy Ugo, who was a pretty famous stylist, and my brother was like interested in that area as a whole, so asked to intern for him. And Ugo, great guy, and he let him, and at the time he was styling people like Justin Bieber, like you said, and Travis Scott, and just like a bunch of cool people. And this was like 5 years back. Ugo was only like 22, but he was like
he was already in the
worldly.
Already in the network.
He's the GOAT. But so I think my brother, for the next 2 years just like grinded, like interning for him, like doing whatever it took. And as Ugo like started to like progress in his career, like he would get clients that he would just like refer to my brother, because like he couldn't handle that many. And over time, my brothers just started, picking up his own clients, some really cool ones, like pretty big musicians, NBA players, a bunch of stuff like that. Just, over time, and I think then, it kind of became clear to my parents that like, it's okay that he doesn't want to like continue school and whatnot, because he's like found something that he loves doing.
Not sitting on his ass. He's actually out there hustling.
For sure. Something. And then of course, like when you start making like any type of serious money doing these things, it kind of like proves a point for you. And I think, that was cool to see, like he that started picking up a lot for him. And, he was flying all over the country and all over actually like the world, like with this like band that he was styling full time.
What was the band?
5 Seconds of Summer.
Oh,
so yeah. So they're a pretty big boy band, obviously. Yeah.
See ya.
And, he's going to Australia, London, all over the world, just styling this band. And, so I think like that was like his school, and he got to learn a lot about, how business works, and I helped him out a lot on that and just trying to like, negotiate his rates and different things like that. So we started like collaborating on that end there. But yeah, like, so like that's my brother, and like that kind of sets the scene obviously for us starting the brand.
Yeah. So you end up coming back, you're now back in LA, you're feeling better. It's probably December or whatever. And so you, Noah, your brother, Joshua and Mason all come together. You guys have the meeting of the minds, 4 of you, right? And you guys kind of come together on this idea of like wanting to spread positivity while also bringing awareness to mental health. I'm not sure if that came first or if Mason landing the name of Madhappy came first, but talk to me about these early conversations before Mason lands on Madhappy. How does this kind of come together that the 4 of you decide we're going to start something?
Yeah. So, like I was saying, my brother and Mason had, been going back and forth about like wanting to create something new. I think my brother, especially like, he got a lot of experience from his first brand, but like wanted to create something new and fresh. And Mason, was at one of our friends' college basketball games, and it was his like last game his senior year. So he texted him like, "I'm Madhappy for you," just randomly. And like Mason texted it, and he was like, "Oh, like fuck, like this is a pretty dope name." So he like texted it to my brother, and my brother loved the name. And this was like kind of like right around the time like I came back home.
Okay. And
they were like talking to me about it, and I was like, "Oh, it's a cool name." Like, definitely like think it's like pretty powerful and whatnot. And that winter, when I was starting to feel better and whatnot, we were all like skiing together, me, my brother Mason, and Josh, who is actually my so my brother's best friend Brandon went to Georgetown,
Mm-hmm.
and his roommate was Josh. And through Brandon, he had heard that we were, doing something. Like we had this like idea, like in its very like early stages. It wasn't like some like thought out plan or anything.
Yeah.
And he happened to also be where we were skiing, so we all kind of got together and like decided to like try to start a brand. Really, like the initial concept was just like around the name Madhappy, around positivity and optimism, and like that was kind of it.
Do you guys know for sure it's gonna be clothing, or you just wanted to start a brand?
For sure clothing.
For sure
yeah,
clothing.
so definitely clothing. We felt like, especially like with like Noah and Mason's backgrounds, like that was like where they wanted to like start, and it was like where they felt like they had like the most experience.
Yeah.
And so we can we kind of decided starting January that we were going to work on that concept, which is like crazy because like I had only moved back like 2 or 3 months before that.
Time is everything.
Yeah, so it's just like very lucky that all that like came to be.
Yeah.
And kind of lucky that I did get sick, and that I did have to move back, which is
Yeah.
like crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. So you guys land on the name Madhappy. You guys are all on the same page. We're gonna start this brand together.
Yeah.
You guys design. I think is that hoodie you're wearing one of the first real like hoodie designs you guys came up with?
So we launched about April of 2017. So
Yeah.
about 3 or 4 months after, we had that initial like talk about everything, and
Mm-hmm.
started out like super simply, like one hoodie, one T-shirt, one hat,
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't have like some grand plan. We didn't like raise all this money to do it. We literally just bought some blanks and printed on it or embroidered on it. And, I think something we did early on was try to do cool stuff, whether it was like super bright colors to go with like that Madhappy vibe, or like it was something like this hood stitch. And, what we saw early on was like, people wanted something that was different, like you've never seen this before. Especially like 2 years ago, like no one had seen something like that before. So like we were like, oh, like this is really dope, and this could catch on. But again, like it wasn't something that like we knew. We just kind of did it.
You guys were just listening to the gut of it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Like I could sit here and be like, oh, like this was like our genius marketing plan, but like it wasn't. It was just like we thought it was dope. Mason, our designer, Chuck, Noah, they all loved it, and we were like, cool. And we would produce in small batches because that's all we could make. And it started to like pick up, from our friends and family supporting. And then really from there, like is like when like the pop-up started, and that was like our first like, oh, like this is who we are type thing.
Because talk to me about the launch party you guys had it was in West Hollywood on April 20th of 2017. Great day to pick, 420. I'm sure everybody was blazing up, but yeah, I mean, like what was that day like for you guys? Because I mean, the fact that you're saying that you guys just kind of designed a hoodie, you had a hat, you had a shirt, it doesn't sound like there was too much, which is a good thing. You guys weren't overthinking it too much. It was kind of like, let's just get this off the ground. We have some ideas. Let's just see where this goes instead of trying to plan this grand master plan. And then there's all these hiccups. It's just kind of, let's just create something and see how it goes. You guys throw this big launch party. How does that give you guys insight of like where this is going to go?
For sure. I think something we kind of just like wanted to do early on was, I guess there's two things. One is, we would see all these like brands start online and whatnot. And, we felt like that was very cool. And of course we first launched online, but we also felt like, especially with clothing, it's like a very much like a feel and experiential type thing. Mm-hmm. I think growing up, us in LA and New York, we grew up with these like streetwear brands, and like we stood in those lines, and we felt
Melrose,
like that.
Fairfax.
Exactly. And we felt like that like community vibe that they were doing by like doing these sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So love that aspect of like the streetwear stuff, but also like didn't like a lot of things. We saw that like it was like kind of like a negative atmosphere, like super dark or closed off. Like you walk into the store and they're like not nice to you, or they don't answer your questions and stuff like that. So that was kind of like where we wanted to be different. We wanted to have that more like optimistic and positive vibe in everything we did. Obviously went very well with the name, but also like, when we did our first pop-up and did that launch party in April, about like 3 weeks after we launched online, it was like the first time where like people could see what we were doing and, could feel the brand. And, we would try to create different elements, whether it was like a little Madhappy mural on the wall or different things that people could, one, just like experience, but also like share, and I think we got very lucky in having such a good name and such like a shareable name that like anyone can feel an association to.
Yeah.
And, you know, we weren't saying like, this is exactly what it means. You know, everyone can think of whatever they want it to mean for themselves.
Yeah.
That was like something we were big on. You know, and I think then kind of started doing like that launch party and events after that. A lot of things that were for like the community. You know, we would throw these large like 600 person parties that people can experience the brand. It's fun. It's not about like, oh, you have to buy something to be here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's amazing, you know, and I think people weren't used to that. And I think some of these things we only know after the fact, but it's like that really like built like our initial community. And then, you know, the next thing was just trying to make the best stuff possible. You know, we knew you would see these brands blow up overnight online, but, you know, they're shipping you shitty product, you know, or they're shipping it late. And we knew that that wasn't like what Madhappy was or what we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And of course, like there's growing pains and everything along the way, but we knew that, you know, we could get people to wear the clothes because the name's super catchy.
Yeah.
But are they going to keep wearing it? And the only way that's going to happen is if the quality is amazing, you know?
Yeah.
So very early on, like around like July of that year, started producing all our own stuff from then on. So everything we've produced has been cut and sewn by us. And, you know, I think, you know, we have some of like the best quality products in the whole market.
Yeah.
And, you know, even more like the luxury streetwear space, like, you know, we think we have a lot better product than some of those brands and for like, you know, a lot better prices. And for us, it was just about, you know, giving people different things. You know, you could be involved in the brand in many different ways. So you could just follow on social media, you could come to our pop-up, you could come to our event, you could buy something, you know, all the way from a hoodie to a hat to a pin, and just different ways to create like an inclusive brand that of course had different elements. You know, stuff would sell out, so not everyone could get everything, but we wanted everyone to be able to like
be
join
part of
in.
it. It was like a big, almost like a big family.
For sure.
Yeah, it's not just like we're only selling products. This is like the optimist lifestyle, right? Like it's like whether you're reading our blogs, you're coming to our events, you're wearing our hoodie, our shorts. There's all these different pieces that it all funnels back to like the whole purpose, the whole value, the whole. I didn't print out the mission statement, but I love the mission statement you guys had wrote on your website.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's beautiful, dude. It's like it's just like so like I don't know. It's just so easy.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. That you bring that up because, you know, we were thinking for a while like what is our, you know, like mission statement or what
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it. Yeah. I wasn't gonna do it, but I was like, you know what, I have to give some context to the people that are listening. But like this mission statement is literally perfect. If my internet doesn't want to act up.
Yeah. So quick background on the mission statement was that we had been talking a lot about it, and we were like, you know, what do we want people to see when they come in the stores? You know, what do we want to have up on all the walls? And, you know, I kind of just like wrote that.
You wrote
basically
this?
Verbatim, like just in my journal one day in like less than like 2 minutes, you know? And then like we looked back at it and I was like, oh fuck. Like,
yeah.
You know, and I don't even know like how that happened. Like, it's not like I'm like some like great writer or anything, but like in that moment it like felt really right.
It sounds like it's coming from the heart.
Yeah.
Let me read it and we can go off of it. The beauty of Madhappy is that each person can have their own interpretation of it. In your opinion, Madhappy is the essence of life. 2 words coming together to create a lifelike existence. It's about the ups and the downs and everything in between. It is recognizing that everything is imperfect because it shouldn't be. It is realizing that the lows make the highs that much more pronounced. It is seeing that the obstacles in life are actually what life is truly about. We must pursue a better version of ourselves in the world around us while still recognizing that everything is fine just as it is. Sometimes we are mad, sometimes we are happy. However, in spite of this all, or maybe because of it all, we can always be mad happy.
Wow.
It's beautifully written, dude. It's beautifully written. Like, I was getting the chills when I was reading that because it's just like, it's loud, man. You know what I mean? Like, it really... Yeah, I could tell, and I'm even more pumped to know that you are the one that wrote it, but like I could tell that was written from a very inner, and it actually makes sense now hearing kind of where you were coming from.
For sure.
Like everything, see, that's what I'm saying. We got to connect dots, ladies and gentlemen. We got to connect to how somebody got to where they are, because you're probably able to put yourself in that headspace of where you were coming from, and put it into words that then you guys use as like your core. Like that's the mission of Madhappy.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Beautiful. Couple things I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
One, I had seen, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you guys were able to get your clothes on, I mean, people like 2 Chainz, The Weeknd, Chainsmokers, Cardi B. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How does that, I mean, is that through Noah's network? I mean, those are great looks, right? Like you get, I think, obviously with clothing especially, once you launch and your name's out there, the biggest thing is you need exposure. You get people like that who are wearing it, huge look for the brand. Are these people reaching out to you guys? Is it through Noah's network? Is it just the branding is so perfect that people are seeing the hoodie? Like, how did those names come about?
For sure, yeah. I think for us it was like I said, we were trying to make the best stuff possible so that when people would get it, they would be pumped about it and they would want to wear it.
Yeah.
I think what we tried to do a little differently was like, we're not like sending gifts to like random addresses that like people would give us that we knew people lived. It was more like trying to build relationships. So, whether it was, some through Noah or some through other stylists that we knew, or, some people directly asking for it, I think just we went like case by case and just tried to get it to people who felt like, what we were doing was cool and wanted to be involved. And I think day by day, and we're still doing that today, we're getting luckily a lot more of those now, but it's really like just about people who embody the brand and embody what we're trying to do, you know? And I think obviously very fortunate that happened.
Yeah. Is there any person specifically that you have seen in the past rock the product and you're like, holy shit, that's our product?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny story just because like early on, we were actually at the X Games in Aspen because we had a pop-up there. And
amazing. That you guys did that around the time of the X Games?
Yeah.
Intentionally?
Yeah.
You guys are savages.
This was like very early on, and I was just like on my phone and we would get all the orders. And I just click into one and it was like Justin Watt, bought a hoodie, and I was like, who's Justin Watt? Yeah. And I'm looking it up and I look up the name because I was like, this XXL hoodie, whatever. And it was like Justin James Watt. So like, it's like JJ Watt, obviously. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I show my friend who's like next to me, and like, we're at like this like concert
that's crazy.
in Aspen. And I was like, oh, whoa, like this like really like has like potential to be huge, where like someone just randomly hears about it, like we have no presence in like Houston, like we have nothing there. And he bought that like in the first year, and like it was really cool like to see, and like showed us like anyone could see it. Yeah.
Anybody could be buying this product.
Yeah.
We have to keep milking it and keep seeing where this takes us.
For sure.
All of the products, I don't know if this is still true, but all the fabrics, and we had touched on, are locally sourced in downtown LA. I'm not sure if you guys still cut and sew everything down there, but everything is supposedly sustainable. It's organic cotton, which I would imagine is how you guys keep like that higher quality. But I love like even looking at the website, like a lot of the colors and like the names, like strawberry, creamsicle, sky, seafoam, highlighter. Like when I say those words, if you're listening, like really picture those colors, because like that's exactly what is shown in the actual product.
Yeah.
And I love that because I think that there's a lot of energy to it. I'm more of a very minimal, like I stick to the grays, the blues, the whites, but I love like the vibrant and the feel of some of those colors. I know we've talked about it before, but like what is making a Madhappy piece unique than another piece in the market right now? What do you think? I mean, it's really about that name too, but like what's that whole vibe and feel that you guys are trying to create for people?
Yeah, I think you said it well on that. It's all about like the energy that like any of the pieces have, so a lot of them, will have those vibrant colors and will be like a more like out there design. And then some stuff will be more minimal, but we'll have like a Madhappy hit. We'll have something unique like the stitching, and like that's what we're trying to do. We're not just trying to make the same thing everyone's making, trying to have like every piece able to stand on its own and make sense to like the larger mission. And sure, like some stuff like doesn't have all these hits on it, and maybe you could see something similar somewhere else, but everything like has like a little flair of Madhappy to it, whether it's just like the care label inside that says like treat yourself like someone you love, something like that, just as easy as that, like changes like that piece, know. And like we just want, like I said, like we want everyone to be able to get something, so we have like a range of products available, and we think each one in its own way is what Madhappy's about.
I think your guys' attention to detail is really what's gonna, I mean, clearly it's been working, but I think that's what's gonna keep helping you guys separate from everybody else because everything is accounted for. Even like looking at, unfortunately I wasn't able to go to, I know most recently you had the pop-up on Abercrombie.
Yeah.
But looking at the pictures, just the detail of the environment that you guys created. You've done pop-ups in LA, New York, Miami, and then most recently the one in Abercrombie. Talk about the one recently in Abercrombie. What was like the vibe, the energy? What was the whole idea behind it? Because it's more than just creating an environment for people to buy a product. We've talked about like what was the goal for this Abercrombie place? Because that's such a vibe. That's such a great place to be for something like Madhappy.
Yeah.
Especially with the summertime, and you got so many creatives in Venice. What was that whole process like?
So actually, that opening, we paired that along with like our first time opening 2 pop-ups in one city at the same time. So we also opened one on Melrose Place.
Damn.
The same week.
That must have been hectic.
Yeah, super hectic. And I think, for us, like we love the pop-up thing. Like I said, it was, now we've opened 9, up to this point over the last 2 years. And, we really try to build them all out as their own. And also like they all feel like real stores. They're not feeling like weekend pop-ups. So we don't really do anything shorter than a month anymore.
Okay.
But I think, it was cool because first we opened this Melrose store.
That was the first one you ever did?
No, so this summer.
Oh, gotcha.
In June we opened the Melrose one, and that's like a grand store. It's like pretty big. We have a whole room in the back that is like fully experiential and whatnot, and we love that store, and it was perfect for where we made that. And then 4 days later we're opening the Abercrombie store, and of course like Venice is like a totally different
whole different ball game.
Yeah, whole different ball game. Like like Abercrombie, crazy street, and we want to make something that works for that community, obviously, and had a much smaller space there. We paint the whole thing orange, make it like super vibrant. Like no other store on the block is that color. We partner up with John and Vinny's, who we did a partnership with earlier this year, and we have their like soft serve concept in front. Inside is like all these like black rocks all over the floor, just like setting like a cool mood, and all the clothes are like on this wooden platform that Noah, Chuck, and Mason all like worked to like design this really cool concept in there. And really just created a store that was perfect for Abercrombie, and we wanted to like make sure we did it right when we went into Venice, and it seemed like the community loved it, and it was really, really a fun one.
Where do you see the next pop-up possibly going?
Yeah, so
did I miss a city? Because I know that you've done LA.
So New
York.
I'll tell you quickly. Our first year we did LA, New York, and Aspen.
Okay.
Then our second year we did Brooklyn, LA, Miami, Aspen again.
Wow.
And then this year we've done the 2 LAs, and then we're going to be doing New York in September. So pumped about that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like the New York's got to be a good market for this brand as well.
For sure, yeah. LA and New York are 2 like biggest markets, and obviously because we've spent a lot of time in those markets.
Yeah.
But really feel like they get what we're doing and want to support.
Do you almost feel like it's better to do a pop-up for 1 month than to just get a location for a whole year? Because it's almost like forcing people, like they're here, we got to go visit, because then they're gone, and then come back in 6 to 12 months. Like, is that kind of like the idea of it?
Yeah, I think early on we did pop-ups because that's all we could do.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't afford anything else. And then we saw like, wow, like when you have a pop-up, it's like way more like people feel like there's scarcity, and they want to go and they want to see it before it closes. So we're kind of like, this type of like similar to like a music tour, just like traveling to different cities, and like we're dropping like cool exclusive stuff just to those stores. So it's like people are like, shit, I gotta go and I gotta get that, or else I'm never getting it.
Yeah.
And then trying to keep it fresh. Maybe one day we'll open a permanent, but for now it's like about like how do we keep people like engaged, obviously like with attention spans being so quick these days, just always trying to one up it and do new and cool things for people.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the way to go, because it's keeping people to show up. And if you're just there all the time year round, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying people wouldn't show up, but there's something to be said about you come now or we're going to be gone in a month. Maybe we'll be back at the end of the year. Maybe we won't be, but you got to jump on it while you can.
For sure.
What's kind of like the roles right now for all of you guys, and how many people is the team right now?
Yeah. So, the core team's about 8 people. So
and you guys operate in downtown art district.
Yeah, so we have
beautiful
a cool
place.
Yeah,
I think that's where Davin lives, in that area,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So we have this cool office in the arts district. It's our first office. I've had it like this whole year.
Amazing.
And it's been cool to have our own space. Like there's like a little creative area for the designers, my brother and all of them, and then we have a cool photo studio in the back and doing a bunch of more cool stuff as we continue to grow. But yeah, about 8 people now. I'd say like me and Josh are more focused on the business and operations end, with my brother being more on the production and the creative, as well with Chuck and Mason. Chuck's our designer. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yep.
So kind of have different roles, but everyone's doing a lot of the same things, because like there's like operational things that we got to do every day. Like this morning, picking up stuff from downtown, dropping it off at the store, stuff like that. Like comes up every day, and there's not always people to do it. So we got to just get it done.
Yeah, back in March was a big month for you guys. You brought in a round of investors. You had co-founders of Sweet Green, MeUndies, who I always hear on Joe Rogan's podcast. So you're doing a great job, MeUndies. Alfred Coffee, and there was a list of other people. But you guys end up bringing in for seed funding of $1.5 million, which is a lot of money. How has having access to not only the money, but like some of these founders who have been through this whole process of taking a brand from X to Z, or A to Z, I should say, what's been some of the big things that have been happening since this relationship?
Yeah,
this is March. That was back in March, or almost 6 months in on something like that.
For sure. Yeah. So I think early on, like I said, didn't raise any money to start. It wasn't really about that. We're trying to create something new. And over time we saw people were liking it, and really at the end of that first year, we were like, wow, this is like a really cool concept, and maybe we could create something huge here.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of these people just like raising all this money, and you kind of like almost get sucked into it. But for us, it wasn't really about like, oh, like let's raise like a lot of money and try to grow super fast.
Yeah. Because
we're trying to really build like an authentic and long lasting brand, which means maybe we won't triple or quadruple every year, but that's okay. And we think like that will give the brand like more longevity.
Yeah.
So really like middle of last year, maybe like last summer, just started thinking about like who we would want as investors if we were going to bring anyone on, and went more the route of getting people, like you said, that have had similar experiences, whether in clothing or whether in brands or whether in apparel or whether in e-commerce, and work with some of those people and get them on board. They supported obviously what we were doing, and then the larger mission obviously around mental health, which I'm sure we'll get into, and then really just brought on one institutional investor who we actually haven't been able to announce yet, but we should announce over the coming month or so. But I think everyone was just super strategic of like, how did we think they fit into like the whole Madhappy family that we were building, and are they, do they want to be on this ride for the next 10 years? Because like this isn't like a 2-year thing for us, and that was really important.
Yeah, it's more than just money, because it's like anybody can lay down the money and be willing to buy in, but you want people that not only align with the brand, but also can bring some previous experience of like MeUndies, their clothing. Like they definitely have been through a process of finding the right manufacturers, or knowing how to kill it in e-commerce. Or Sweet Greens, I'm sure they've nailed the execution on like experiences of like going into their shop, the vibe, the energy. So that all kind of makes sense. But yeah, like the mental health component, let's run with that. Personally, I think that's it's such a hot topic for 2 reasons. One, it's actually a very serious thing in this world right now that I personally deal with too, and I'm very authentic in the content that I put out, and I talk about it that like anyone else, I'm like a roller coaster. I have my days and I don't have my days. Most of the time I'm flying above the clouds. I'm a very optimistic person. I always flip the perspective on when shit happens. I'm like, okay, how is this better? Like my life could be worse. I'm very good at it, but there are those times when I'm in those low moments, like everybody else. But also it's like you can see sometimes people out there that are trying to ride that wave, and they're trying to create or sell something that it's like the intentions aren't right. So then it becomes this huge like hot topic of everybody wants to talk about mental health, and it's like you need to talk about it. What is kind of the conversation like for Madhappy? I know you guys had just recently launched like the Madhappy blog series, which has 5 sections. You got the Madhappy, which is focusing on the product. You got the conversations. You have the mental health piece. You have culture, and then you have the log, which is the local optimistic group, which I love. Yeah. Talk to me about kind of this whole conversation that you guys are having on how you can use Madhappy to bring mental health awareness to other people.
For sure. Yeah. And, I definitely agree with what you're saying, that like it's a hot topic and, everyone wants to talk about it now. I think for us, like it started from a really like authentic place. Mm-hmm. My partner Mason, who, before we were partners, we were just friends. Even as early as like high school was like the first person I ever talked to about anything related to mental health, and he shared just some of his different life experiences with me. And I was like, wow, like, I was lucky at that point to had never even known, what that was, or never had thought about that. And, when we started Madhappy, it was, kind of fitting that like, Mason had thought of the name.
Oh, that's true.
And then, with the vibe of, the positivity and optimism that we were trying to promote, we were like, we really want to have like a larger mission, and a larger thing that we're working towards, It's not just clothing. And, you could feel that early on, whether it was at the events or whatever, it was just, there was that like type of energy. And, we were like, mental health like works perfectly with what we're trying to do. One, because, Mason had the most direct experience with it of the founders. I had some experience with it, getting sick and being home and realizing, in any given day, like, you have all these problems and all this stuff going on. And as soon as like, your health goes, like, that's like your only problem, and like that becomes like the barrier to everything else in your life, And so when we kind of like decided to use Madhappy as like a platform to spread awareness around mental health, it came from a place of, realizing, we have this like young audience, we have this amazing platform, and really like with social media and all this like bullying going on and all this abuse, we would see like these mental health problems that, first of all, no one's been talking about for all these years, are only going to get worse, are only going to get, exasperated as this stuff becomes more and more mainstream. Yeah. And, you're going about your day hearing about all these, celebrity suicides and all the suicide in the press. And it, it's all super like dark, and we wanted to create something that let people talk about it, and we wanted to have our place in the discussion and try to make the impact we could. Yeah. But I think early on, like, we didn't know what exactly that would be. It's, you think about amazing companies like Tom's, for example, that had this great model of, you buy a pair and they donate one across different third world countries. Yeah. That's like a very clear, you can understand and feel exactly what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Mental health is, much more complex than that. Yeah. It's much more of a global problem. It's not you or me or, anyone can suffer from it. Everyone does. Everyone has experiences with mental health. There's levels to it too. And there's and there's many levels. And also, it doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how poor you are, it doesn't matter where you live. And I think a lot of those things made it such a global problem, like I said. And then there's just this wide spectrum of mental health, of course, and everyone is somewhere along that spectrum. But the point is, we want to just be able to talk about it. Yeah. And mental health doesn't mean, and talking about mental health isn't only when it's bad mental health, just like you talk about, going to the gym, that's great physical health. Yeah. So, what can you be talking about that's great mental health? Yeah. And people have like this weird like connotation of the word mental health, obviously, I do too. Yeah. Everyone does, that's kind of how we grew up with the word. Yeah. And I think now is like one of the first times that like people are able to talk about it more. And we felt like, no brand has ever like tried to like be the voice for mental health. Yeah. And we felt like if we did everything super like authentically to what we were doing, mental health is such like a perfect component for us to have like as our broader mission, because it's not some like just charity thing we do, you know, and we'll get into specific things we do in the space, but it's really more about like, how can we play our role?
Yeah.
And no one person, no one company, no one anything is going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
But everyone can play their own role.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the key, is knowing that it's not supposed to be on the weight of one person's shoulders to change the world or to make that difference. That's why I don't care what the number of plays are of people that listen to this podcast. It's like, I will stand by the fact that meditation has completely changed my life, that being your authentic self also helps to a certain extent with mental health, because I think the mental health can come from comparing ourselves to where we are, to where we want to be, to where everyone else is in their life. It's like, just strip away everything else, remove the noise, and just be who you are in this moment. I wrote a blog, not to plug myself, but I wrote a blog last week, and I was really happy with it because I just started getting back into writing. This was one of the first blogs I had written in a long time, and it was called Be Here Now. There's so many times that I, on a day-to-day, will like be thinking about what I'm going to do after this podcast, or what I need to do, what I did yesterday. And it's like, my head can go a million places. There's nothing else that matters. And that's why I said before we started this podcast, there's nothing else that matters right now in this moment than this podcast, to be here now.
Yeah.
Because once this finishes, you leave, then I'll move on to the next thing I need to do. And then the next thing. But it's like, if we spend our lives or our days drifting, thinking about all these other things that need to get done, once you get to the next thing, you're already thinking about the next thing. Yeah. It's like this domino effect. So I just think it's the best way is to just be, and maybe sometimes people will have people to bounce these conversations off with. Like, thank God I live with two great people, but also one of them being somebody that I grew up with, like somebody that can really understand me. Like, I had a breakdown back in January. Long story short, had just got back from great 2 weeks off, was back home visiting family. It was great. It was amazing. Yeah. I come back, I drive Uber to pay all this bearded man content, and I was in Santa Monica, pulled over to the side of the road, started bawling my eyes out, and I hit a wall. And that was like the realization of like, you got to ease your way back in, but also you need to be much more aware and conscious of like, are you pushing yourself too hard? Like, Is it really worth to go that extra hour? Is it really worth to lose that 1 extra hours of sleep because you feel you have to keep working?
For sure.
But at the end of the day, it's like, the best thing that I can do, I feel, is keep putting out the energy that I want to put into the world, which is just positivity. It's an option. You can either choose the positive stuff or you can choose the negative. But also too, just like, it's okay to talk about it, and that's when you feel better. There's no better feeling for me than when I put out podcasts like this, or I put out a blog, or I put out an Instagram post that's like truly genuine, or I'm in my car and I'm recording my day-to-day grind, whether it's like the bullshit Uber or like I got home and I felt like crap. Like, I love that because I'm just like, I can't be more authentically myself. And I think the best thing that can help people with the mental health aspect is realizing it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. And know that it's gonna get better. Sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it so much said it in the mission statement, and I'm sure you can think of it too. It's like, you remember those moments of when you were in that lost fog. Yeah. Now you're in a better place, and even in those moments when you do get in the fog again, you know, like, it's gonna get better. For sure. It's gonna get better, and surrounding yourself by the right people, and putting good energy into the world. All those. It's like a pot of positivity. Yeah. Let's call it the pot of positivity. Yeah. You gotta feed yourself the right thoughts. You gotta consume the right content. You gotta take care of your physical health. You gotta take care of your mental health. You gotta be around the right people. Like, there's so many things that's what helps you stay mentally in the right position. I feel like.
Definitely. And I think, you made a good point. It's like, even if, one person who hears this podcast is like, wow, I need to talk to someone about this, or, I got to go make sure all my friends are good. I think that's what's so powerful, is that, like, before it was never like, you look at Instagram and all that stuff, it's like all the highlights of people's lives. And like, for us, it's like, we also want to talk about, it seems like we're doing really cool stuff, but like, we have very low moments as well, like weekly, whether it's with work or life or just no reason at all, and there's so many ups and downs. And I think a lot of people just like focus on like, oh, like all the cool stuff, or like the pop-ups and all this stuff. Yeah. But, just trying to spread that message that like every single person goes through like the same like pattern, you know. Of course some people have it worse than others, and we're very empathetic to that, but it's also realizing, you know, like you were saying, like you had a breakdown, you're not exactly sure why, but you sharing that, you know, will help someone else down the line. And we think that creating this platform and the various ways that we do try to spread the awareness will, you know, make impact for many years to come. You know, and even if one person tells one person, you know, that's enough for us.
The ripple effect.
Yeah,
the ripple effect.
For sure.
Shout out. That's another thing, man. That ripple effect. You don't know how the energy that you're putting out, the clothes that you guys are producing, how like there could be somebody that wears that hoodie that like feels like they're being hugged by somebody, or there could be somebody that hears this podcast. Like there's just so much that we can't track, but you have to just trust and believe like it's gonna affect somebody out there. Is now, we had talked about it before the podcast started up, but I know you had mentioned that possibly thinking about starting a podcast. Is that kind of where the direction would go, to be kind of talking about mental health, or what is that still in the works, or is that a possibility of what you guys could see next?
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on, you know, what we've actively been doing in the space, please, and what we hope to continue doing in the future. You know, I think early on we wanted to have stuff in physical spaces, you know, so we have a pop-up. You know, every pop-up we do at least one mental health related event, which can include things like panels. You know, we love getting both like professionals in the space, but also just cool people from the community that people want to hear from talking about mental health, you know. So we'll usually moderate a panel around that, you know, have 50 to 75 people there, but really like impact all the people there. And then of course we're sharing that on all the channels, and we're live streaming so everyone can tune in. And then, you know, using content like that, doing like we did a 3-day meditation course, so doing things all across the spectrum, you know. It's you know, trying to be like super like holistic in that approach, and making sure every event we're doing ties back into that, right? So, you know, for example, we do like, we just did a party in New York in July 4th weekend, and it was just a party, no specific agenda, just a fun time. But, you know, all the money we raised from it was donated to, you know, one of our mental health partners. You know? And so those are the things we're trying to do in person that we feel like really like help people long term. And even if that's just one person, you know, and then offline or online, what we're trying to do is continue curating that positivity and optimism how we've been, and continuing to add in different layers. So, you know, first it was just the positive messages on the Instagram. Then it's, you know, doing things around, you know, Mental Health Awareness Month of sharing facts and sharing ways people can get help. Then it's doing a collaboration with, you know, an amazing partner on the mental health side, and donating all the proceeds there to that foundation. But, you know, really trying to do like our authentic stuff. You know, it's always like creating something really cool that people love, and then allowing that to like share the story we want. You know, so that's why, you know, we were inspired to start the blog, and all the conversations there are very much tailored to talking about people's mental health side of things, you know, which they're usually not talking about on podcasts, on interviews, on
talking about that specific thing that they're
for sure
passionate about, or whatever they do for a living.
And you know, we've seen like so many people be, one, like very willing to talk about because, you know, they've never been asked, and then two, like so many people just like writing to us like, wow, like, you know, like what you guys are doing is like, you know, amazing. And just getting one of those emails is like obviously is like huge for us. And then what we're trying to continue adding on is, like you said, podcast, definitely in the mental health space, right? So conversations with people, conversations of us, and just continuing to build on that, you know, and always making sure that everything we're saying is still going to be like super research backed. We're going to work with our amazing partners to like build out different resources on the website as well, for people that want to get help, for people that want to learn more information, and continue just like curating this like positive and optimistic community while trying to help this like bigger mission of mental health, you know, and of people being able to talk about it.
It's really beautiful, man, because I think the intent is really there. I think the authenticity is there. I just think you can win in this world by building something great, but also doing something great for the world.
For sure.
Right? Like, so you're like examples. You guys are you're building a lifestyle brand, and you're shining light on mental health. Liquid IV, who we were talking about earlier, they are hydrating people, but they're also supplying people in need of hydration throughout the world. I mean, there's so many other companies that are doing this. Like, you can build something great and also give back and give to the world, which is it's like, it's just beautiful. It all can full circle, and it can keep going round and round. I mean, this really was selfishly me trying to find a passion. Long story short, now I'm here getting a chance to network with people, providing a platform to people, and then giving somebody whoever's listening out there in the world a place to go to listen, you know? So if you whatever you do in this world, as long as you're sticking to who you are authentically, it will work its way out. Somehow, some way, it always seems to.
Yeah.
Like, the right people will fall into place, the timing will fall into place. Yeah. Having that vision for what you want, it kind of, I don't know, it's just, you have to believe in it. You have to believe that these visions can come to life, because they eventually do.
Definitely.
Thinking bigger picture, like in 3 years from now, what do you want to see Madhappy do? What do you like? I don't think we all have to have a big game plan. Like, I don't know where this is going to be in 2-3 years, but like, if you had to speak something into existence, what do you want to see happen for Madhappy?
For sure. Yeah. You know, I think anytime we look back a year, we're like, wow, you know, we can't believe we did all that in a year. And, you know, it's kind of hard to, like, you know, imagine where we're going to be, you know. And I always used to be like, so like conservative, where I thought we could be in a year and whatnot. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, like, that's pretty crazy. You know?
Past that.
So yeah, you know, we're trying to be like super, like, you know, optimistic about where we think this can go. You know, our main thing is just like creating as big of a platform as possible, you know. So that means like interacting with the most number of people, whether it's online or offline. And that comes in a variety of ways. So, you know, we hope to, you know, continue this, the clothing side that we've been doing, get into different categories in clothing, and continue spreading in the US and internationally. You know, we think Madhappy is such like a universal name that, you know, it could be felt and loved like everywhere, you know. And we've seen that from, of course, we already ship internationally, but having real presences in different countries is very exciting for us, and we think we could continue spreading that message there, you know. And I think doing that and figuring out, you know, where we want to be on the content side as well. You know, I think like content's what's going to drive our whole company and platform forward, and the way we're going to make the biggest impact, you know. So that's going to be continuing to do what we're doing and adding more onto that. So doing the Instagram, doing the blog, adding the podcast, adding different channels, adding more video, and really adding ways for anyone to get involved at any of the age ranges that our core customer is. And, you know, it's like that one piece of content for the right person, you know, can, you know, save someone's life. And we hope to be able to provide as much of that content as possible. And at the end of the day, you know, we realize, like, for brands to, like, you know, you have to stay cool, you have to stay relevant, you have to be doing the cool partnerships and all the stuff where that's why people care about what you say. You know, and that's why I think a lot of these like celebrities like have such a good platform, because all these people look up to them. And, you know, we're trying to use our platform to like spread that, you know, and bring like-minded people and companies on board who want to do the same things and want to give, you know, other people hope, you know. And
I mean, as you know, like you're saying, like you want to dream bigger, because you're telling yourself, you're being conservative, saying we can only do this, and then you end up surpassing that, and you're like, well, wait, what could we possibly do? And I think personally, I think that's what's going to happen, is like the content piece is really going to take Madhappy to that next level, because you're a big fan of Gary Vee. As Gary Vee would something saying along the lines is like, every brand in this world is now a media agency, and you got to produce content at scale. And I think like that's only going to come with time. But when you guys have the YouTube channel rolling, and you have the podcast rolling, and everything's coming out on a weekly, maybe someday 5 days a week basis, like I think that's when you're really gonna be like, damn, we actually built, like, not only did we bring our visions to life, but like we're really seeing people get impacted. You know, the Madhappy Fridays, where it's like a 5-minute podcast talking about, like, I don't know, something to give you that little inspo, or like the interview with people, or the YouTube series of the meditation. Like, there's just so much potential, and I think sometimes it could be overwhelming, because you're like, where do we start?
For sure.
But I think the fact that you're just taking those baby steps of like getting the blog going, the conversations going, hosting the pop-up events, and incorporating the mental health, like all of these things are just going to keep building and building. It's going to be massive, man. I truthfully like said to myself when we were kind of booking this podcast and I was doing the research, I was like, because I couldn't find a lot of content on YouTube. I found a lot of interviews of you guys like through blogs, but I couldn't find a lot of like YouTube people that had like reached out and interviewed you guys. And I was like, you know what? I'm glad I'm gonna be one of the early guys that gets them in here, because when people start really searching their name, they're gonna find the bearded man. They're gonna find a conversation from the jump. For sure. So I'm excited to kind of see what happens with Madhappy, and this is this has been incredible. And we still have more questions. I don't want to make it sound like this is ending, but this has just been a great conversation. What do you think has been one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned recently that you wish you knew when you were 18?
Recently?
Yeah. In the last 6 months.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you know, I think for me, like I said, you know, growing up, I was always like super like type A, like work super hard, like, you know, like grind it out type mentality. And you know, running your own company, you start seeing like things that, you know, you can't do that, because then you'll never take any type of break, you know. And I think especially like, as you know, like when you're your own company, you know, you never want to take any like time off. You never want to do anything. And and that's great, you know. It means like we love what we're doing, but also like the impact we're able to have is like lessened by doing that sometimes, you know. And I think over the past 6 months to a year, what I've learned, and you know, I'm still working on heavily, is like trying to disconnect a bit more, you know, trying to spend some time away from my phone, away from my email, you know, taking a short trip, you know, and trying to get away from it. I think one of my bigger like goals of this year and moving forward will be to try to separate that a bit more, so that, you know, once I'm in there, like I'm able to be like fully locked in, you know, and I'm able to not be like, oh, like I'm just doing this for the next 10 years straight with no time off. And that starts with the morning thing. But then it's like, okay, you know, the morning thing is a 3-hour thing. What should I be doing, you know, every week? Maybe 24 hours off, you know, my phone or off social media, or something that can help me, you know, be just more like centered and, like you said, like in the present moment. Because of course, like, you know, we all like struggle from that, you know. There's so many different like stimulus is coming at us at, you know, a million miles an hour. Like, you know, I'm sure I'll check my phone after this, and there'll be emails and texts and different things, and you know, trying to understand that that's okay, you know, that'll figure itself out, or I'll deal with it when there's time.
I feel like sometimes just finding like you got to find the balance of it, but in the sense of like for the social media aspect, I'm very big on like, you got to look at social media as a diet. So what are you following? What's being put into your feed? Because if it's not good stuff, get it out of there. So unfollow the pages you don't pay attention to. And then just like, I think with the emails and texts, one thing I've tried to get really good at is like, I'm going to like sit down and go through emails for an hour right now. And as soon as this hour is up, that's it. If I get another email, cool. Not answering it, I'll check email again in 6 hours, you know? I think that's also important. It's just like because as an entrepreneur or as somebody who's running their own business, your time you flow. There's no structure. There's no punch out at 5, clock in at 9, punch out at 5, clock in at 9, which is a beautiful thing. But the flip side is now like I can work all the time. And so finding that balance, I think for a lot of people, is that trial and error of, you know, I will see great emails come in. I'm just like, awesome. Can't wait to respond to that. I'm not going to respond to that right now because it doesn't need my attention this moment. Text messages that I'll have in my phone after this, they don't necessarily need to be answered immediately. But it's kind of that work in progress of like trying to separate it and just patience, just like chill. Like everything's going to get done, you know, like that email will get responded to, that text will get responded to, social media is going to keep rolling no matter what. But just like kind of being aware of that, I think is important.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of like that meditation thing I was talking about, you know, like especially days like I make sure I get the full, you know, 20 minutes in. Is like, you know, that's the time where like your body's like doesn't know what to do, and it's like freaking out because like you can't do anything. And you know, I think that's kind of like just like obviously mental training, you know, for the whole life we live, and 100% for the time our eyes are open, you know, and it's cool.
Meditation will end up, and if it hasn't already, I bet you it will. Remember this conversation. It will end up becoming the thing that you go to when stressful moments happen. So like even before my man Eric got here, before you got here, I sat in the chair for 5 minutes and just closed my eyes, and I just meditated. I did this morning already. Maybe I'll probably do it before I go drive Uber. Just like, it's like my reset button. It doesn't have to be the formal sit down, 20 minutes, quiet space. It's like me just closing my eyes. I've trained myself to just like 10 breaths. And then it's like, as soon as I open, I'm like, all right, it's game time, baby. It's game time. But I think the meditation, I can't say it. I can't speak so loudly enough about it. What do you think is your greatest strength?
Yeah. Wow. I think in a lot of ways like that, like competitive / like hyper curious way that I've always been has like served me really well. I think in a lot of ways, like being overly competitive is bad, and I'm sure has like led to like some things that I haven't wanted. But I think that general combo of like highly curious and competitive like has allowed me to like be super resourceful and like figuring it out. And I think that's what I'm good at, is like figuring it out, and especially like when you're doing your own thing, but in everything, in school, any other job, like it's about figuring it out, and it's about trying to do whatever it takes, and I think those kind of things came together, and I got lucky to have, I didn't like cultivate these skills. I was just lucky to like, that's how I was when I was, as young as like 6 or 7, like it's all I remember. And I think those things like made me who I am, so like those are definitely my strengths. And of course, like all your biggest strengths can like backfire in some ways, but like it's still who you are. And that's still always going to be like your defining characteristics. And of course you do things throughout life to try to like, tame the bad parts of it, whether it is meditation or trying to be more like self-aware. But I think, when I look at myself, like I know the things that make me tick. I know some of them that aren't serving me well, and hopefully we'll work on them as, my life goes on. And but I think those for sure, I would say.
I think especially too, as somebody who deals with the operations aspect, that is important, because you're always fighting a fire. There's always going to be the next thing, and then as soon as that issue gets resolved, you're like, all right, we did it, and then boom, there's another problem. Boom, there's another issue. Sure. So it's always that mindset of, like figure it out. What's the next step? How do we resolve this issue? Always just acting on the fly. I feel like you always have to be on your toes, like ready to go, because it's never just perfect. Like there's going to be those like couple hours, maybe a couple days, maybe a couple weeks where it's like everything's in place, but then something's going to happen inevitably. And the sooner you kind of train yourself to realize like there's no point in working myself up, because I can't control that. I can only control how I react to it. It's like, oh, okay, so this isn't going to happen. All right, how do we react to it? Instead of like, yo, man, this isn't working. And then it domino effects, and you're going crazy, and everyone around you's freaking out. And it's like this big, big, big problem.
Yeah, I think like, especially that, now that you say that, I think a lot, especially like compared to like people I work with and people I see, is like, stuff goes wrong every day for us, of course, every single day. But like I treat them as just like part of the day. And it's and it's fine, and sometimes like other people are freaking out, but I try to just like stay calm about it, because it's already happened. It's like done. It's done, no matter how bad it is. Like, and if it's reversible, we'll reverse it. If it's not, that's it.
Move forward.
And I think like that has like helped me, just like be okay with everything that's going on, and I think, and again, I don't know why, I'm more calm about those things. Maybe I just like realize that like just part of life, and it's not gonna like kill me, and it's like, okay,
on to the next.
And I think it's not like life or death, these things, and there's so many worse things, and trying to like think about those things, like you said, it could always be worse. And, how do you make this into something good is like what I try to do.
I want you to fill in the blank. Blank makes me mad happy.
Wow, that's great. I would say I mean, there's a cliche one, so I want to try to think of a good one.
Think about it.
But I think I would just say like, like support. I think like I've been lucky, in many ways to just like have support from like my family, my friends, my brother, just really everyone. And then, as like we started building this company, we saw that like, just like random people were just like super helpful along the way, and they didn't need to be. And that's something I've always liked doing, is just like being super helpful to people. And, you know, like Gary always talks about like the legacy he's trying to leave, and, you know, the number of people that like show up to his like funeral and whatnot. And I think like I kind of live by that as well. And I've always tried to be like super helpful to like my friends or someone I like meet today, you know, and I'm down to help them however I can. And I think I love that feeling, you know, being able to help someone with whatever. And I think I've loved also getting that, you know, in return from like my amazing like friends and family. And that like support like is like super motivating, you know, because like if you're having a hard day, like talking to your friends and like they know like, you know, the journey you're on and the battles you're facing, and, you know, you're able to like use that energy for yourself. You know, and I think that's like an amazing thing for us, to be able to like have that support and to just, you know, see the people that, you know, like some of those people on that wall that have been super helpful to, you know, what we're doing. And, you know, it really shows, you know, like the kind of people that are in this world that, you know, like the amazing people.
You need people. You want to build something great. That's what you need. You surround yourself with the right people, and everything else will just fall into place with time.
For sure.
What do you think Peiman's purpose is?
Peiman's purpose, PP. Yeah, you know, I think like we've talked about a lot is, especially like the thing I was just saying on like helping the most number of people, you know, I think like the legacy and you know, purpose like I want to have is just like impacting as many people as I can, you know, so that means, you know, this podcast right here, or one of my friends helping them with one thing, to a larger thing, you know, building an amazing company that impacts millions of people, you know, so there's a wide range of that, but I just want to have like a positive effect on people, you know, and I think at Madhappy, we just want to make the world a more optimistic place. And I think like that came from like what we want as people as well, you know, is we want to have an impact on people, you know, and I think I've always like loved people. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people and trying to help them, you know, and I know that it's not about like getting anything in return, and that's not like why I do it. You know, what I get in return is like the good feeling of helping someone, you know, and I think some people don't have that, and some people are like way more like cynical about that, or they're like, you owe me this for this, and that kind of stuff like always like turns me off on people, you know, and just, you know, I think that what I'm just trying to, you know, I'm just trying to like live my life like my best life possible while, you know, helping like the most number of people possible. And you know, that doesn't mean like not making money. That doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means like everything I'm doing is going to have like a positive facing direction, and that's all I could like hope for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Before we get into the closing questions, this is when I reverse the role. I allow the guests to ask me any one question. It could be about something we talked about today, something you want to know about me. 2 rules. 1, it can't be a question directly about the podcast. And 2, it can't be a question I already asked you today. Any one question.
For sure. Yeah.
Clean slate, baby.
Definitely, yeah. And I think I would ask you, you know, when was like your first time that you were like, oh, like this is what mental health is, you know, whether it was like a personal experience or like a friend or, you know, like you're like, oh, you know, shit, like this is like real.
That's a great question. I mean, yeah, I'm sure if I really thought about it, there were probably other moments maybe in middle school or high school, but I think the real moment was graduating college, because this was arguably the happiest moment of my life.
Yeah.
Right. Like I did 4 years, got the business degree in my back pocket, and truthfully, my graduation day was like way too bittersweet. Like everyone's happy and pumped. They're like graduating. They know they have the next thing. Like I was really mentally like just so on graduation day. I was like, yo, this is it. I'm graduating. I have no idea what I'm doing. And even like the weeks, kind of earlier months leading up to that, starting to kind of kick, and I'm really just like, yo, what am I about to do? But it was like a mix of that moment, and it was also a mix of about 4 weeks after. If you've listened to this podcast, I'm sorry, but I gotta tell the story again. It's really like I get the chills thinking about it. I'm back work. Long story short, the podcast is just a concept. I haven't even recorded the first episode yet. I go back home to where I was from, Western Mass, Chicopee, Mass, about an hour and a half from where I went to college, and not knowing what I'm about to do next, knowing that I want to start this podcast, but I don't know how I'm going to make money. I have 6 months until college loans kick in. My uncle, who I had worked for, my first job ever at 13, he's like, hey, he owns a landscaping supply company. And I get back, and it's obviously, this is the end of May, early June now. It's the middle of the summer on the East Coast. And he's like, I could use you if you want to, like, you know, come and work. And I was like, of course, like, I need to make some money. I got nothing else to do. It's great. It's outdoors. It's cool. But there was a moment when I got back to working with him for a little bit. I'll never forget this moment. And it's like 7 p.m. It's a weekday. I'm out there watering the plants. It's super quiet. The sun's kind of setting. It's been a hot summer day on the East Coast. It gets real humid. No customers are there. My uncle's not even there. It's me and another employee closing up shop. We have another hour left, and I'm sitting there watering these plants, and I had this like epiphany of just like, I'm back to where I started. Like, this is the job. This is the first job I ever had. Like, thankful for my Uncle John. Like, thankful that he even gave me those early opportunities, showed me work ethic. But I was like, I have a college degree in my back pocket, and I'm back to the first job I ever had. What the fuck did I do? Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So I think the whole mental health really I started meditating spring of my senior year, because it was like starting, like, not anxious, but I was like, I really got to figure some shit out, because I'm about to graduate. I haven't found a job that I even consider applying for. And that's when I started listening to podcasts like Lewis Howes, Tim Ferriss. So I was really starting to like hack into like this mental health space of like talking about it and not just like shunning it away. I don't remember even before that, like, you'd hear the word mental health and you kind of like, what?
Yeah.
That's a thing? What? I don't really know what that's about. And it was never talked about. But I think where I really started to become aware of it and started to really like gravitate and like pay attention to like there's actually like a thing is around that time. Was leading up to graduation. I'd really say 2016. Mm-hmm. The year of 2016 was for sure the most mental bump ride of my life. Looking back on it, my problem, once again, perspective, like my problems compared to the world, there's not a damn reason I should have ever been in the low moments that I was, in the dark mindsets that I was. But at the time, I went through some dark moments, whether it was myself putting myself in those like into that space or whatever it might be. But it was tough.
Yeah.
It was really, really tough.
Yeah.
And I got through it. And I truthfully, I really treat this podcast just as I still picture that mindset. I can really kind of close my eyes in a quiet space and just think about who that was. Like, because this is about to be 3 years at the end of the month. So it's like, it's really like 3 years. You could argue it's not that long of a time, all blah, blah, blah. But like, it's a big pat on my shoulders because of like the kid that started this 3 years ago. The fact, it's just like, man, if he only knew what he was going to create and the people that he was going to meet, he wouldn't believe it, man. He really wouldn't believe it. It's I could spend a whole hour talking about it, but I think that was the moment. That 2016 was the year where I really started to pay attention to it. And also, like I said a little while ago, just like, I'm forever going to be a voice. I don't give a fuck what people think about me.
Yeah.
And I'm very okay with sharing the highs and lows. Most of the time you're getting, that's why I love that bag, optimist, because most of the time that's all I'm preaching. I don't like talking negative. I don't like putting bad energy into the world. But I've also recognized the importance that when I do have these moments, share it.
Yeah.
Because I end up getting more people chiming in, showing love and supporting me, and like saying, you know, we believe in you, or I'm having my own struggles. And it's not like, I'm not trying to throw a pity party for the bearded man. I'm just trying to just show it.
Yeah.
Like, be authentic. Screw the highlight tape.
Yeah.
I want people to see the real shit.
Yeah.
So 2016 was for sure the year that I learned what mental, like, really had to battle some of my own inner demons. And to this day, I still have these little demons that like to jump around, but I quickly try to beat them down and keep the whole positivity. And, you know, like I said before, surrounded by the right people, feeding myself the right content, and just constantly forcing myself to just what's good, like what's positive about your life. Keep the negative bullshit behind you.
Definitely.
And keep moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think especially like on the optimist thing you said, it's like being an optimist doesn't mean you don't have lows, you know, and I think that's what like we want everyone to realize, and it's like being an optimist is just like doing your best at all times.
It's a choice.
Yeah, and it's a choice. And when you like opt in, it doesn't matter that you are having a bad day. That has nothing to do with like whether you're an optimistic or pessimistic. It's just how you view things. You know, obviously. And I think for me also like 2016 and going through all that was like a crazy time. And I think we're the same age, so it's like
we are. That's why I was like, when I really started researching into you and your story, I was like, I kept getting more pulled in because I was like, okay, he's the co-founder. Also, I got to give a shout out to Ryan Westberg. I don't know, I said before we fired up the pod, but Ryan Westberg, you are the reason that I found my man today. So thank you, brother. When I like kept diving into more of who you were, your story, and just like seeing like you went to business school, so did I. You went to corporate and something had happened. I never did, but I could see that like you completely drifted. And so I was like, there was no questions asked. I was like, this is a podcast that kind of needs to happen. Closing questions for you. One, where can people find you on social media, and where can they find Madhappy on social media?
For sure, yeah. So I'm just at Peiman Raf, and then we're just at Madhappy. So got that Madhappy handle.
I love that.
After a grind.
Oh, I bet it was. I'll have that all tagged up. If you're listening, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go to Peiman's actual Instagram, drop a bunch of bearded man emojis, and he'll know you came from the podcast today. Before I ask the last question, I want to thank you for coming in today, taking the time to do this. This has been incredible. I really stand by everything that you and your team have created with Madhappy. I think this is going to become something beautiful. And I'm going to push and say that I can't wait to see kind of the content side of where you guys want to go. I know there's a lot of, you guys are throwing pop-up shops. You have clothes. Like there's so much time in a day that only 8 people can work on. But when the time's right and you guys are going to start really heavily investing into the content production, I can't wait to see what it becomes, because I think it's just going to scale this brand to even more. And I love seeing people like you guys who create something, and there's just so much good energy about it that I'm telling you right now, and 5 years from now, people are going to come back to this video and be like, yo, this dude got these guys before they blew up, before they were like on Melrose and had a whole story. Like, I got you guys before everybody else. But I love and respect everything that you and your team have built with Madhappy, man.
And thank you for having me. And likewise, what you've obviously created over almost 3 years now is amazing. And like a lot of those things is like you never would have known unless you tried. And I think that's what you're doing every day. If I could be more like you, that would definitely make me a better person. So I appreciate you having me.
The love is mutual, my man. The love is mutual. Last question for you. For somebody that's listening that hasn't found their passion, hasn't found their purpose out just yet, what's the best 2 to 3 pieces of advice you would give to them?
I think like it's really just like all about timing and patience. A lot of people look at what we're doing and they're like, wow, you're so lucky that you found it at like 22, and some people don't find it until much later. So I think the first thing would just be like willing to try a lot of things and not being comfortable with where you're at, and not being comfortable in a role, even if it just pays you, a lot of money or whatever the case, and if you are happy there, and that's completely fine, but really just trying to find like what else excites you and what really, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want people talking about at your funeral? Like we talked about earlier. And then, just being able to risk something, and it starts out small, if you really want to start a podcast, it's not that hard to do a couple episodes and see how it goes and just test it and test a bunch of different things like that. Because I think people find these things to be like so risky or like so like life or death, but really like if you take a leap, like nothing happens if you fail. No one remembers, no one gives a fuck about what you're doing, no one cares what I'm doing, only I do, and only I remember the stuff that didn't go right, but people remember when you do really well, so I think like realizing that has been like so important for me, And then, you know, reaching out to people that have done what you want to do once you do figure it out, you know, and asking to talk to them and, you know, providing value to them, you know, so there's a benefit for them meeting you, but also just like realizing that like if you don't ask, then you'll never be able to like meet with some of these people. And I think that's what I've seen, you know, like the people I've been able to talk to just by like asking is amazing, you know. And one, you know, I meet you today and you introduce me to someone I meet and they introduce me to someone, and that ripple effect thing is real, you know. And I think then the last thing is just time, you know. Once you're doing what you want to be doing, it's like it takes a lot of time, and you know, if it wasn't hard, then it, you know, it really wouldn't be worth it, you know. And you know, my basketball coach used to say like they don't call it easy work, you know. It's hard work and it's consistency, and that's the stuff that you're going to remember at the end of the day. You know, you're not going to remember all the easy stuff in your life. You're going to remember like the hard things that like had a great payoff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Amazing. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Peiman Raf, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in today, man.
For sure.
We'll catch you guys next time. See you.